All right. We're here. We're live. We made it. Okay. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. That was twisted. Yeah, we made it through the new year.
Whew, allegedly. It looks like Congress is trying to make it into another year.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of great, with McCarthy. He looks very nervous, McCarthy. Let me tell you something. If that line holds, because nobody thought this would hold, that these people wouldn't hold. He offered them all kinds of deals. And they said, okay, we'll take the deals. And we're not going to buckle anyway. In other words, they changed the rules, like 5 congressmen can vote him out. They tried everything last night, and so far they're holding.
Yeah, well,
they might be idealistic, Eric. I know this sounds crazy.
It could be. It could be. It's funny. What is it? The first time in 100 years that they haven't had a speaker.
Yep.
It's embarrassing no matter what. Even if they fold, he's still been embarrassed.
Well, that's if they fold, yeah, which I have my doubts. It's about 50-50 right now. I mean, all of these people are coming out against them, quote unquote. Newt Gingrich, others, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it should be entertaining, but we're fortunately reaching back into the past, and an entertaining fellow or somebody who's come up. Now, this guy came up, I believe, during the Bolden episode.
Oh, is that true?
Didn't he have anything in Chicago?
No, not in Chicago. Yeah, he's not. He's from Kansas originally, but yeah, I don't think it had anything to do with Chicago per se. Although there may be some connections. We're going to find out in this episode.
Okay, well, the guy in question is sometimes called Jim Braden.
Well, yeah, that's later. Yeah, originally Eugene Hale Brading. Eugene Hale Brading that's his legal name, because his parents are the Bradings, the Brading family from Kansas. Working class people having nothing to do with anything. But yeah, his original name was Brading, but multiple aliases for this guy.
So when did he? Okay, so take us through it. Let's find out, who is this guy? He's from Kansas. I know very little about him.
Oh my God, this is one of the obscure people in the assassination, Eric, and we have vowed under federal law to go through all the different characters in the JFK assassination to a place where no man has gone before. So we have signed an oath, a loyalty pledge and an oath to go over every character. Now you say to yourself, who is this guy? Eugene Hale Brading. What could he possibly have to do with the assassination? Well, when Eric and I were in Dallas, I took Eric to the front of the Dow Tex building, where I showed him the second floor window where a possible shooter might have been. And it looked like, to Eric and I, a great location for a shooter. So in regards to Brading, moments after the assassination, there's a guy looking for a payphone in the Dow Tex building, and it's Eugene Hale Brading. And he is retained by the elevator operator, who contacts the police on the street that this guy is in the building and he looks suspicious. Let me just start there, just so people know where we are. This is moments after the assassination. He is the elevator operator in a freight elevator, because it's kind of a freight building. Don't forget Zapruder's offices are in there too, Eric. And don't forget that DeMoran Schultz's wife works in the building as a dress designer for Zapruder. Yeah, so you've got a real crazy building going on here, the Dow Tex building, which are now condominiums. If anybody wants to live there, there's a gift store downstairs and condominiums upstairs, which is kind of creepy. But on that particular day, on November 22nd, 1963, this guy, Eugene Hale Brading, is apprehended by a deputy sheriff named Lewis, C.L. Lewis. C.L. Lummy was his nickname. So C.L. Lewis, a deputy sheriff, apprehends him and says, "What's your name?" Okay. And he says, "What are you doing in the building?" So he says, "My name is Jim Braden, Braden." He takes out a credit card, of all things, to show that it says Jim Braden. And he says, "I was in the building looking for a payphone." So that's where we start this story of who this cat is.
All right. So wait, he pulled out a credit card as his identification?
Yeah. So then he's taken over to the sheriff's office with other people who are taken to the sheriff's office, who have all been brought in for questioning. Let's say, I want to say a dozen people. Mormon, other characters in the assassination folklore, photographers and others are brought into the sheriff's office, where he is asked to give a voluntary statement to the County of Dallas Sheriff's Department, a voluntary statement, right? Because they're holding him there for an hour, maybe 2 hours, right? So I got a copy of the statement off of a site, and I just wanted to read you the statement. It says, "Before me, the undersigned authority on this, the 22nd day of November, AD 1963, personally appeared Jim Braden, address 621 South Barrington Drive, Apartment 6, LA, California, office 215, South La Cienega Boulevard, Beverly Hills, California, age 49, phone number 472-5301. Now, these two addresses are fairly prominent addresses near me. Barrington in Beverly Hills, La Cienega, not as much, but back then, also Beverly Hills, two pretty upscale neighborhoods, right? And it says, deposes and says, "I am here on business, oil business, and was walking down Elm Street trying to get a cab, and there wasn't any. I heard people talking, saying, 'My God, the president has been shot.' Police cars were passing me coming down the triple underpass, and I walked up among many other people, all watching them. I moved on up to the building across the street from the building that was surrounded, and I asked one of the girls if there was a telephone that I can use, and she said, yes, there is one on the third floor of the building where I work. I walked through a passage to the elevator. They were all getting on a freight elevator, and I got off on the third floor with all the other people, and there was a lady using the pay telephone, and I asked her if I could use it when she hung up, and she said it was out of order, and I tried to use it, but with no success. I asked her how I can get out of this building, and she said, there's an exit right there. And then she said, wait a minute, here's the elevator. Now I got on the elevator and returned to the ground floor. And the colored man who ran the elevator said, you are a stranger in this building, and was not supposed to let you up. And he ran outside to an officer and said to the officer that he had just taken me up and down in the elevator. And the officer said to me to identify myself, and I presented him with a credit card, Eric. And he said, well, we have to check out everything, and took me to a superior and said to me, wait, and we will check it out. I was then taken to the sheriff's office and interrogated. Jim Braden, subscribed and sworn before on this day, November 22nd, 1963, Evelyn Cox, Notary Public, Dallas County, Texas. Now, you say to yourself,
did he say who he was calling?
No, he never called. He didn't say who he was calling.
Okay.
Because the credit card ID gets him off, right? So he gets off with that credit card ID, and he has a driver's license that says Jim Braden also with the address here in LA. So he also has a matching driver's license, which he doesn't initially produce, but which also says Jim Braden, Braden, which is his alias. So he's now retained for a couple of hours, and he has to go back to the hotel where he's staying, which is the Cabana Hotel, this incredible, modern, brand new hipster hotel on the other side of the Stemmons Freeway. That's the Cabana. It was built by a guy who designed Las Vegas hotels. It was way ahead of its time, and show people would stay there. It was brand new. and a lot of different people stayed in this hotel. It was very, very upscale, very hip, very new, and it was the only Las Vegas type hotel in Dallas. And it was open and had a lot of weird kind of designs. And one of the designs, if you go back to that picture, because this is going to play into it, if you just go back.
I got a better one.
Okay.
Showing that. You're talking about that.
Yeah, I'm talking about the lattice work, the stone lattice work that goes around the building. So it's exposed to the outside. The outdoors runways, the walkways are outdoors, but this stone lattice work wraps around the whole building. That was the avant-garde design at the time. Yeah, there it is. That's a better shot.
Well, I just wanted them to see from the outside the entire thing screened, and then that's what you look like inside.
Right. So if you opened up a door, let's say one of the many doors, you would be looking at all those holes, all those different peepholes there, 6 to 12 inch lattice work wrapped around the building. Yeah, there's a great shot of it. There's a great shot. Now, on the other side, what you're looking at is the Stemmons Freeway. And once the motorcade comes out of Dealey Plaza, it makes the right onto the Stemmons Freeway and makes a bullet to Parkland. Bullet speed is doing about 60 miles an hour to Parkland. So it has to go right past this hotel. And this is going to come into the story because in suite number 301, staying in that hotel in 301 is Jim Braden and his partner, Morgan H. Brown. Now, Morgan H. Brown is another interesting guy. They both come from LA on oil business. Okay. They're there on oil business, and that's why they come in Thursday night. Keep in mind, the apprehension of Braden is Friday at like 2:00. Okay. They have reservations till the 24th on Monday to stay for the weekend in this expensive suite of rooms. When he comes back to the room, his partner, Morgan H. Brown, is gone. He's checked out. He's hit the road, Jack. He's no longer there. They're on the way to Houston and for more quote unquote oil business. So Braden jumps in a private plane, or he takes a commercial plane. They're in a private plane. They get down from LA in a private plane, by the way. And he jumps into a commercial flight from Dallas to Houston and meets up with his friends in Houston.
Okay, so a couple things here. A diners club and a private plane. There's some money going through his hands.
Oh yeah. They are involved in various oil leases. Now let's go back to Thursday, November 21st, when they show up. Okay. November 21st, he is there, Braden, to meet with Lamar Hunt about oil business. This is H.L. Hunt's son, the wealthiest man in America, the Elon Musk of 1963 America. He is in the office of H.L. Hunt. There's H.L. Hunt doing his magic trick there or something.
Isn't that a great picture?
I always love that photo of H.L. Hunt, the benefactor of General Walker, by the way. And there he is at his mansion. But I think you might have a younger photo of Lamar Hunt. That's H.L. Hunt. Okay. So H.L. Hunt is a extreme ultra conservative who puts out a magazine called Lifeline, which has extreme conservative, ultra conservative tracks in it. And he financially supports many ultra conservative causes, including a radio show that he himself has on the radio once or twice a week called Lifeline, where he comes on, he talks about conservative issues. And he has a son, Lamar Hunt, which will later become the owner of the Kansas City Chiefs. But on this particular day, they will also have a guy named Fred the Hammer on the Kansas City Chiefs who will attempt to hit the Packers in the first Super Bowl over the head with his cast. Fred the Hammer will then become a movie star later on, like O.J. Simpson. He's on the Kansas City Chiefs, completely side story having nothing to do with this. But here's Lamar Hunt. He meets with Braden and associates in the office, and he pays for the ad. Welcome to Dallas, Mr. Kennedy. The famous ad that was placed in the Dallas Morning News. I don't know if you have a copy of that. Yeah, there it is. Welcome, Mr. Kennedy, to Dallas. That is paid by Lamar Hunt. And Braden and the associates are there in the office I don't know if it's about the ad or oil leases or what, but Braden is there, and there's another guy in the office, and we're going to get to that other guy in the office in a second. But going back to the hotel on Thursday night, this is the night before the assassination, the night they get into town, Thursday, November 21st. They meet in a restaurant room in that hotel called the Bon Vivant room. In that Bon Vivant room is a guy who's Jim Braden and two other guys, Lawrence Myers and his brother Ed Myers. Now, Lawrence Myers and Ed Myers show up, and they're also staying in the hotel. And they have an interesting connection to this because Lawrence Myers is a friend of the guest that shows up from the Egyptian lounge at 2:00 in the morning to join them, and that is Jack Rubenstein. So Jack Ruby, Jim Braden, Ed Myers, Lawrence Myers, and a girl named Jean West all are having there's Jack, are all having a late night snack. Now, Jack had already had a steak at the Egyptian lounge run by the two brothers who will visit him in prison once he goes to jail. Okay, where I had a meal, a nice pizza when I was visiting Dallas. Highly recommend the Egyptian lounge even today. And they have a Jack Ruby booth over there where you can sit in. So these guys, Ed Myers and Lawrence Myers. Now, Ed Myers is there for a different reason. Ed Myers, the next day, this is Lawrence Myers' brother. Lawrence Myers is there to help Jack with his twist board business, to help him with those twisting devices he was trying to sell, if you recall, Eric. He's a businessman. You say, well, who's Ed Myers? Ed Myers is in town for the, wait for it, Pepsi Cola Bottlers Convention, tying into our last episode, where another man will show up tomorrow named Richard Milhouse Nixon, also for the Pepsi Cola Bottlers Convention, because Nixon is the lawyer for Pepsi Cola. So these two guys, Ed Myers and Lawrence Myers, are in there with Ruby and Jim Braden and this guy, Morgan H. Brown. Now, who is Morgan H. Brown? Morgan H. Brown is kind of the muscle for Jim Braden. Morgan H. Brown, just to give an example of who this guy was, he got into some trouble. He had a restraining order against him from his wife. He got divorced and he was in LA. So he goes to his wife's house for some domestic reason, and she calls the police. So the cops show up. One cop shows up, an LAPD cop. He beats him up, steals his gun, takes all his clothes off, ties him up, and starts shooting at his feet, making him dance like some cowboy picture. He then retreats to his own house where he's surrounded by a SWAT team, and it takes him 17 hours to extract him from his own house. Just so you know who Morgan H. Brown is. This is the sidekick of Jim Braden. Now, Jim Braden's rap sheet, getting back to Jim Braden, goes back to 1934 in Camden, New Jersey. This is a guy who is a burglary guy, a con man, a hustler, a money laundering guy, a guy with so many criminal things on his sheet, they have to use multiple sheets. Okay. He's got about 17 arrests by the end of 1949. He's even selling gas ration coupons from the United States government. He's running numbers. I mean, this guy's linked with the mob in Camden, New Jersey. Just
diversification.
Right. So he is a con man and a hustler. And the reason I'm telling you he's a con man and a hustler is he's 6'2" and he's a good looking guy. And he is going to have about 12 wives, ladies, not 4, not 2, not 6, but about 12. And by the time his career is done, his specialty with a guy named Victor Piera, who's his side hustle wedding bunco guy, will marry the widows of famous Texas money oil guys who are dead. They specialize in marrying, this is unbelievable, dead oil guys' widows. And he scores repeatedly. At one point, he's living in Bing Crosby's mansion in Palm Springs with the widow of a dead oil guy from Texas. But this repeats itself a number of times. So in 1952, he's arrested because the wife, I'm going back in time a little bit here, so bear with me, just to get back into how Braden became Braden, because nobody knows this stuff. This stuff, there's no YouTube on this, folks. What I'm telling you here is just raw research. And I mean, you can look up the records. 1952, Braden is arrested as the sidekick to Piera for hustling a woman out of hundreds of thousands of dollars, who's the widow of an oil man. So they're working together. Sometimes they marry sisters. Sometimes they work together as a team, but they're all living together, the three of them, out in Palm Springs. So the police this is unbelievable. He's in Dallas with one of these widows, with Piera, and he is confronted by, this is 1952, Eric, Sheriff Bill Decker of Dallas County. Now, Sheriff Bill Decker will be the sheriff who seizes the porno films of Ruth Paine and is also the one that takes away the projector and brings back where Ruth Paine wants her lesbian porno films. That's the same Bill Decker in 1963 as 1952, who confronts Jim Braden, says, this is unbelievable. You're banned from Dallas County. He says, if you ever, and he arrests him for vagrancy. He has money, but they're trying to roust him, Eric. You know what I mean? They're trying to roust these guys, sure, because they know what they're doing to these widows in Dallas. So he bans them from Dallas County, and the widow presses charges against him and Piera. Okay, they're arrested. She testifies in the court case against them. And they say in the appeals, they sentenced to 12 years for embezzlement and stealing the money from the widow. Sentenced to 12 years on a federal beef. They contest in the appeals that the woman who's the wife was testified against her husband. And indeed she did. It goes to the United States Supreme Court, this particular case in 1954. And it's a landmark case because it involves a woman, a wife testifying against her husband. We'll bring Barnes on Friday. We'll talk about it with Barnes. But this is a particular case that they split 6-3. They find against Braden, and he is taken away to Terminal Island, where he has to begin his sentence for this embezzlement. Does about 2 or 3 years on it, and he gets out. When does he get out? He gets out in 1963 in September, and he gets a phony driver's license in LA County that says Jim Braden in September of 1963. And why does he do that? Nobody knows. He's Eugene Hale Braden. Before he goes to Dallas in September, late September, 2 months before the assassination, he changes his ID. Now, he has a parole officer. He has a parole officer in LA. And he says, I'm going to go to Dallas on oil business. And the guy says, okay, just check in with your parole officer in Dallas, which he never does. He gets the driver's license, he gets the credit card, and becomes Jim Braden. This becomes one of the most brilliant things he's ever done, because when he's confronted by that cop, Lewis, he pulls out the credit card and the driver's license to get away. Because if they would have simply run Eugene Hale Braden, it would have shown a record going back to 1934, and he would have been held incommunicado at that point. But he wasn't. He was released. He goes back to the hotel and then flies to Houston to hook up with his friends. And you say, well, that's kind of interesting. I don't know, Mark. What could that possibly have with the assassination? Well, just think it over, Hunley. He has an office in New Orleans. And you go, wow, everybody's got an office in New Orleans, right? There's oil business in New Orleans. He's got an office in a building called the Père Marquette building. It's now a hotel. It's kind of like a triangular Art Deco building. There it is. And in that building on the 7th floor, it's a beautiful building, a couple of blocks off of Canal Street, really strange triangular building. On the 7th floor of that building are 2 offices in the same hall, 701, and down the hall is 706. In 706, Braden had an oil office in there for oil exploration and oil rights and things of that nature, with a geologist in that office in 706. But in 701, what goes on in 701, Hunley? Kind of interesting. There's a guy named Ray Gill, an attorney in there who's got an office. And that attorney has a client named Carlos Marcello. And that Carlos Marcello and Ray Gill have hired a private investigator to help them beat this federal rap that's coming up. And the private investigator is named David Ferry. So in that office down the hall, you can't make this up, Hunley. You can't make this up. Down the hall from Jim Braden is David Ferry in the office as a private eye, working for Carlos Marcello, trying to get him off of the that case. So just keep in mind that we don't know Ferry as a private eye. We know Ferry as a pilot. He's taken people he's the one who flies Carlos Marcello out of Guatemala back to New Orleans. He's flying Clay Shaw up to Toronto, trying to get a nickel account after the banning of the Cuban nickel mines in Cuba. There's all kinds of things. He's supposed to fly to a place called Houston. You can't make this up. First, can't make this up in New York. Yeah, there's going to be more. So what do they find? Let's find it. What do they find in Ferry's apartment when he's dead? What is the inventory of a private eye? Let me just read the inventory of which I should have done in the Ferry episode, but I'm going to do it now. This is what they find in David Ferry's apartment upon his demise from his medication. Let's put it that way. A blue 100-pound aerial bomb, a Springfield rifle, a Remington rifle, a .22 rifle, 20 shotgun shells, 2 Army Signal Corps telephones, 1 bayonet, 1 flare gun, a radio transmitter, 1 radio receiver, 32 rifle cartridges, 22 blanks, several cameras, and 3 rolls of film. So this is the private eye that's down the hall from Jim Braden, who is working the oil business out of New Orleans. Now, you can't make this up, but to go back to the hotel, these guys have now checked out of the Cabana Hotel and gone to Houston. But it turns out that the day before, when they went to see Lamar Hunt, there was a guy that went with them to see Lamar Hunt, and that guy's name was Jack Ruby. Jack Ruby and Jim Braden went to see Lamar Hunt under the guise of getting a girl named Connie Trammell a job, a PR job for the Hunt business, oil business in that building. They took this girl, Connie Trammell, who was offered a job by Jack Ruby as a stripper, but she was a straight-laced college student who was majoring in journalism, if you can imagine that. And they took her to meet Lamar Hunt. And Braden, the reason we know this is because when Braden left LA, his parole officer in federal documentation said, "Who are you going to meet in Dallas?" And he said, "Lamar Hunt." And there it is, Hunley. That's the connection between Braden and the Hunts, and it's in the federal documentation and the parole. That's Lamar Hunt right there, and that's the one who runs the ad. Welcome to Dallas, Mr. President.
Amazing.
So far, it's amazing, right? Okay, we're going to keep going on Braden because we're not done with this guy. And like I said, in 52, he's run out of Dallas by Bill Decker. The wife testifies in 1954. Okay, cut to, I want to say, February of 1964. All of a sudden, Braden comes into a ton of money. And I mean a ton of money. This two-bit crook is now loaded for bear. He becomes a founding member of the La Costa Country Club down by where Richard Nixon lives in San Clemente, California. One of the most upscale country clubs, built with Teamster money by the Jimmy Hoffa Pension Fund. Originally, the first guy in was Mo Dalitz. Mo Dalitz took the pension fund money and built La Costa. Now, La Costa is super upscale, and how this guy, this two-bit crook, was able to become a founding member of the La Costa Country Club this is 3 months, 4 months after the assassination, Eric, right? And it cost about $25,000 in 1964 money to become a founding member. So 25 times 6 or 7, whatever that is how much he threw down.
Wow.
At one point, they opened up his golf locker inside. One of the custodians opened up his golf locker, and in the golf locker was $200,000 in cash. And he said, "Don't ever open that freaking locker again, or I'll break your arm." Right in the locker in the locker room, the golf locker room at La Costa. La Costa becomes a place where Frank Sinatra goes, where all the celebrities go, where Nixon goes, where John Dean met with Ehrlichman and Haldeman for secret meetings while Nixon during Watergate was down at San Clemente. This place is famous even today. To this day, it's an amazingly upscale country club below San Diego, by a little bit, 20 miles north of San Clemente. So what is this guy doing being a founding member of La Costa? It's crazy. He becomes a courier for the mob. And when I mean courier, this is what he's known as. Jim Braden is known as a top flight courier. When they skim money from a hotel, they take a guy like Braden who takes the money, gets on a plane and flies to Switzerland. In Switzerland, he puts it into a Swiss bank account where it sits sometimes for 2 to 3 years. And it's brought back clean after 2 or 3 years into the United States and given to a guy like Meyer Lansky. And Lansky was able to take the money and use it for legitimate business practices, as was a guy named Mo Dalitz. And you say, who's Mo Dalitz? Mo Dalitz was a guy who ran a hotel called the Desert Inn. He was one of the original mobsters who came out of Cleveland, Mo Dalitz. He was the founder of the La Costa Country Club. He was the guy that got the money from Jimmy Hoffa to build La Costa. And La Costa is built. Mo Dalitz runs the Desert Inn. And somebody wants to buy the Desert Inn. And in the movie, it's the Corleones. And if you remember the movie, Alex Rocco gets shot in the eye in the montage where Michael takes care of all his enemies. There's a famous montage when the baby's getting christened, where everybody gets taken care of. And Mo Green is Mo Dalitz. Alex Rocco, when he gets shot in the eye on the massage table at the Desert Inn, that's Mo Dalitz. And he plays that character, Alex Rocco. And in reality, the Corleones are a fictional family, and they're trying to buy the Desert Inn. There's a little bit of fiction here. But in reality, the guy who does buy out the Desert Inn from Mo Dalitz is Howard Hughes. And that's how Howard Hughes gets his foot into Las Vegas, was through buying out Mo Dalitz, who was Mo Green. So just to give you a little mob history there, Jim Garrison believed that all this mob stuff was a fake out, that Jim Braden and all the mob thing was a fake by the CIA to make you look at the mob. That was Jim Garrison's take on this, because he now subpoenas this guy, and the guy he subpoenas is named Edgar Eugene Bradley out of California. Now you say, who is Edgar Eugene Bradley? This is a completely different guy, because Braden has aliases very similar to this. And a guy named Lauren Hall, who is a mercenary, very sketchy mercenary, tells Garrison that the guy he's looking for Eugene Hale Brady. Garrison is looking for this guy, but he's got so many pseudonyms that Garrison can't find him. So Lauren Hall says the guy you're looking for is Edgar Eugene Bradley. So you go, who the hell is Edgar Eugene Bradley? He's a member of the Minutemen, an extreme right-wing organization under the tutelage of Carl McIntyre, who was a right-wing reverend in California at the time, and a John Birch Society right-wing man who they're trying to blame for the assassination. So he issues a subpoena for Bradley, and Ed Meese, the Attorney General of California.
Your friend.
What's that?
Wasn't that your friend later?
Ed Meese, yeah, he came after Lampoon, yeah. And he kind of did a lot of damage with the Meese Commission. Anyway, so Ed Meese is the Attorney General of California, Eric, and Reagan is the governor. So right. Meese says, yeah, let's just send him, we'll extradite him to Garrison. And Reagan says no. Reagan puts a stop to it for reasons we still don't know to this day. because Meese said, yeah, it's an extradition. It's a district attorney. What's the difference? And Reagan must have gotten some intel from somebody because he wouldn't give up Bradley, right? And Bradley really has nothing to do with the assassination, but Garrison thinks he's Eugene Hale Braden. So the whole thing becomes a clusterfuck of the wrong names, and Garrison gets spun out because he's looking for this guy, and he's got the right intentions. He's just got the wrong name. And the guy is arrested. They do arrest Bradley, and he's held for a couple of days and then released on orders from Ronald Reagan. So there is a weird twist to that story.
Wow, crazy. I love so the names actually worked out then too.
What do you mean?
Well, the fact that he has so many aliases that, that they're going after somebody similar to one of them, it's like confusing.
I mean, back then aliases really worked. If you could get, there's a shot of Eugene Hale Braden in Dallas with the hat on, with the sunglasses. That's one of the photos they took of him. And that was one of many disguises that he had. Now he's involved.
You can see his height.
He's 6'2" with the hat. He's probably 6'4". Yeah, he's a big guy. He was a big guy, but he was kind of like this con man, playboy, romance, bunko marriage guy, and the as I said, the courier of the money. Now I believe, and this is my theory, that when he met with Ruby that night in the Bon Vivant room on Thursday, November 21st. He was bringing in $50,000 for Jack Ruby to do the execution on Lee Harvey Oswald on Sunday, because the next day on Friday, Ruby is already on the trail of Oswald in the police station. He's already on his trail. Now, the $50,000, I believe, came through the courier Braden, and that's why he was there. And I don't know if the money came from Lamar Hunt to Braden, or from the mob to Braden, or from somewhere to Braden. But I believe Braden went to the Bon Vivant room that night to give Ruby the $50,000 times 7, which is $350,000 in today's money, to do the execution on Oswald. Now, how do we know he got the money? He installed a safe in his office, Jack Ruby. He had it riveted to the floor of his office. He then went to the bank. There was money coming out of his all of his pockets. He had like $1.15 in his account. He signed a power of attorney with his lawyer saying to take care of my IRS debt if you don't see me again on Sunday. So there's multiple factors involved with Ruby getting money to take care of Oswald. I mean, there's multiple facts that go around these dots. So Ruby is now given the money to his lawyer, and he heads over multiple times, Friday night, Saturday, and Sunday to kill. He kills him on Sunday, but he goes over there Friday and Saturday stalking Oswald, to kill him Friday night, Saturday night, and then finally, when they were going to do the transfer to the county jail, he kills him, knowing all the cops. He gets down into the basement and does the job. I believe that's the mob connection to the Kennedy assassination, is that whole nexus that I just explained, because that whole thing could only be done by the mob, involving dirty cops and guys like Ruby. That, I think the assassination was military and also, involved real gunmen. But let me tell you this. The lattice work that you saw at the hotel, this guy, Morgan Brown, had a sniper's rifle in that room. And it's been reported that he was going to shoot through that lattice work. This is after if Daley Plaza did not happen and the car got out safely and they were heading to the Trade Mart for the speech, he was going to take a shot from right there into the head of JFK as the car went by on the Stemmons Freeway. And he packed in that rifle after JFK's death, and they got the hell out of that room like at 2:00 on Friday. This is now an hour and a half after the assassination. He packed, even though they were booked till Monday, they had a reservation till Monday. He got on that private plane with the other guys and fled Dallas to Houston. Now, Houston was supposed to be the rendezvous, don't forget, of David Ferry with his plane at Redbird Airport to fly out whoever had to be flown out with David Ferry and his plane. So these guys have another private plane that flies them out of Dallas from Love Field into Houston.
And Walker was on a plane too at the time, right?
And Walker was on the plane coming back from Shreveport, Louisiana, on the flight where he said, remember, you saw General Walker on this flight, and he gets them to sign. That was the Braniff flight out of Shreveport. At the same time, the pilot announces that Kennedy's been shot up in the air. The pilot announces that, and Walker gets the stewardesses to initial his boarding pass to make sure nobody forgets that he was on that flight. Possible guilty conscience on Walker's part.
Wow.
So anyway, the Suite 301 is vacated, and when he comes back, Braden, nobody's there. So he checks out himself, and he heads for Houston. And the later Garrison thing is 1967. So we're talking about, this is 1963, 64. He comes into money. He starts serial marrying more widows and more divorcees again. But he already somehow has rolled up a nest egg of money to buy into the La Costa Country Club founding members. And nobody knows to this day where that money came from. It might be related to the assassination.
Maybe. I mean, you usually don't stumble into a lot of money 2 months out of prison.
No kidding. Yeah, I know. And I'll tell you something. Before he went to prison, the wife at that time cut him off and cut off the credit cards and cut him off. So he didn't have any money before he went to prison. He didn't have any money. And when he came out, he certainly didn't have any. So somehow in February of 1964, he begins to acquire great wealth. Enough to get him into the country club.
Ambitious fellow.
Ambitious fellow.
All right.
Okay, so I just want to point out that there's another guy in the Daltex building when he's apprehended, and that is a guy we may or may not do a show on. There's not much about him. He was Army intelligence, James Powell, who took the famous photograph of the 6th floor depository window. He was military intelligence, the photographer that day. He was also in the Daltex building. Apparently everybody's in the Daltex building. I just wanted to mention him because he was in there by his own admission. There's a statement that he gave that he was there taking photos on his day off. Now, a lot, which is kind of interesting. We may have to do a show just on James Powell, because there's Army intelligence in that front lead car, as we discussed previously, and we don't know what they're doing there. And Powell was part of that group of military intelligence on the ground that day. I mean, Gordon Arnold said, and others said they were shooed away by Secret Service with a badge. Even the people who ran up, the Dallas police who ran up the grassy knoll, were confronted by a Secret Service agent with a ID that later proved to be fraudulent. So there's guys floating around in Dealey Plaza directing people in different directions. Now, there is a weird moment when Braden is living in Beverly Hills. He's got money. He's a member of the country club, and he's shopping at Safeway in Woodland Hills. Now, Woodland Hills is an upscale suburb in the Valley. And he's got a supermarket cart filled with groceries. He's shopping by himself. And he's got tons of money in his pocket. And he wheels the cart right out of the store to his car. And the guard at the Safeway supermarket nabs him and calls the police, and he's arrested for shoplifting, Eric. And the police show up and they arrest him again as Jim Braden. No one knows he's Eugene Hale Braden. The Braden alias holds from 1963 to 1968. For 5 years, nobody knows he's Eugene Hale Braden. He's Jim Braden. He gets arrested as Jim Braden. for shoplifting with a cartload of food. So the cops show up and they go, "What gives?" And he says, "Look, I'll just pay for it here." And he takes out hundreds of dollars. So the cops go, "You can't pay for it. You stole it." He goes, "Why did you do it?" He said, "I got to tell you why I did it. I've got a lot of phlegm in my throat and I had a hock a loogie. So I took the cart before I paid to come." I swear to God. He says, "I took the cart of food to come out here on the street to hock a loogie, and then I was going to go back in and pay for it. But the guy ran out and grabbed me after I hocked the loogie." So the cop says, "I don't know. I got to book you." So he goes to court as Jim Braden. Again, they don't run a make on him. And he says, "Look, I don't want to be embarrassed. I'm a very wealthy oil man." He says, "Let me just plead guilty to this." And he gets a 60-day suspended sentence, as for shoplifting. And the case kind of disappears because he pays the fine. But it's kind of weird that this guy with all this money is so street that he doesn't even think about shoplifting because he's been doing it since he was a little kid. That he just rolls out this cart of gourmet food with caviar in it and French bread and deli meats, and he rolls it out, whatever.
Like the Whole Foods of the time.
Exactly. So he buys the food, he goes home, whatever. And the guy, this is kind of interesting. The whole story about this guy does not come to the surface until 1968. And what happens in 1968 that we know about? Well, there's something that happens in LA where this guy lives. Now he lives in a hotel. He lives in a hotel which is nearby on Robertson, and he's there with his ex-wife, and an event happens June 5th, 1968, where the brother of JFK is killed in the Ambassador Hotel, and this guy is 15 minutes away in another hotel. Jim Braden is still under the alias Jim Braden, and the police don't know anything about this. This is the only guy in history who is linked to both the JFK and the RFK assassinations, Eric, which is why I wanted to do this episode. No man is linked to both assassinations other than Eugene Hale Braden, aka Jim Braden. Okay, so here's the story. There's a guy, a reporter for ABC. He's not a reporter. He's kind of not this guy. There's a reporter named Peter Noyes, Noyes, and he is a managing editor. As Peter Noyes, he's the managing editor of ABC News. This is not a reporter. This is the managing editor of the news office, not a guy on the street. Peter Noyes is so obsessed with Braden that he begins to investigate him, and he uncovers his history and criminal rap sheet, and is the only guy to come up with this thing that this is Eugene Hale Braden. So what does he do? He notifies the LAPD, who are completely caught with their pants down, that this guy, Jim Braden, was 15 minutes away and was involved in the JFK assassination 5 years before in Dallas and was arrested. And the LAPD cannot ignore this, Eric, because that fact that he was arrested sends off all kinds of bells and whistles in Special Unit Senator, which was SUS, the unit that they set up, which we covered in the Sirhan episode. If people want to take a look at the Sirhan episode, you'll begin to see a connection between the two assassinations. This guy is the connection between the two assassinations, is Jim Braden. Now, what was he doing in the Dow Tex building? I believe, and other experts believe, that he was a lookout for a shooter on the second floor of the Dow Tex building. He wasn't a shooter. His partner was a shooter who was in the Cabana Hotel, but what he was doing in the Dow Tex was a spotter or a lookout. And the shooter got out, and he got apprehended, but was slick enough to talk his way out of it. The LAPD goes over and interviews him, and he issues a statement similar to the one, I don't know if I have his statement, but there's a similar statement saying, I was in this hotel with my wife all night, and I was not at the Ambassador, and blah, blah, blah. However, there is some abstract connection to him and some of the other members of the RFK case that have yet to be explored. and have never been explored at this time. Braden will live to about 1994, and I think that he will pass away, a fairly wealthy man in Florida, with 12 ex-wives, ladies, 12. So, yeah, there's his grave. That's, I think, in Florida somewhere. I forget exactly, like Boca or something. But Peter Noyes, here's the thing about Peter Noyes. Peter Noyes wrote a book called Legacy of Doubt. And the book is really a hatchet job on Jim Garrison. A lot of these guys were deep state newsmen, and they hated Jim Garrison's guts. But he was at ABC, where he was partners with another guy who was his investigative team. Now, this guy in the photo did on-air stuff. Peter Noyes was not on air. This guy was on air. He was on air for ABC News for a number of years in Southern California. Peter Noyes later goes to CBS News local. This is KNXT. But here it was KABC, where this guy had a talk show and news show, and his partner was Peter Noyes. His investigative managing editor was Peter Noyes. This guy will go on to become friends with Ford and others a little later in his life. He'll run for mayor of San Diego. He'll become head of Voice of America. He became head of USAID. He is the father of an obscure guy today who's on Fox News named Tucker Carlson. So we've come full circle, my friends. We started out with Jim Braden, and we've come full circle to Tucker Carlson, who said the CIA killed Kennedy last week based on documents and a source that he considers to be close to him and irrefutable. And that, I think, is the father, Dick Carlson. And Dick Carlson will have his wife leave. His French wife flees the family in La Jolla, where they settle, and he marries the heir to the Swanson frozen food empire, who becomes Tucker's mom. And Tucker is then put through private school and lives the life of Riley because of the mom. The father, who is shown there, was a Marine, a real tough guy, and becomes the head of Voice of America and works in the Ford and I want to say Reagan administration. I think the Reagan administration puts him into the Voice of America, which brings us back to Reagan and Ed Meese and Casey, who becomes the head of the CIA, coming full circle, where they, with Jolly West last week, when Reagan wanted to put that insane asylum in the missile silo in Santa Monica Mountains. And Bill Casey and him said, if I ever become president, he said to Bill Casey, we're going to fund things like this.
I love how it's coming full circle.
These dots don't connect themselves, friends. You gotta connect them at home. We're just putting them out there. But we've come full circle on stuff that no one's ever reported today, involving all of these characters, because they are interstitially connected, and maybe even more than interstitially connected, as far as I know.
Wow. And the last wrap, we have his name change document, or a statement he gave.
Oh, about the name change. Yeah. I have a bunch of documents we could post on Locals, Eric, because I've downloaded a lot. FBI reports on him, Jim Braden's name change. He writes to the director of the FBI all the time. He wants his own Freedom of Information Act stuff released. I have letters from Braden to the FBI. Dude, it's ridiculous. He's trying to get his own documents out of the FBI.
So he was bold.
He was extremely bold. Yeah. And there's letters from his wife to the FBI. Can you please pick up my scallywag lying husband and put him in jail? Margaret Mary Lee, department applicant. Yeah, Federal Bureau of Investigation. A lot of good documentation on Braden, but no one's ever really connected these dots. I think, unless you people know some spots I haven't looked. There seems to be multiple connections to Braden and other parts of the assassination. And what Eric and I are trying to do is to show all these tangential characters and to show you that they're not really tangential at all, that a lot of people were involved in this operation and it wasn't a lone nut. So So there seems to be a lot of people involved in this particular project. But I'm curious about, I couldn't find what happened to Morgan H. Brown. I'd love to find out what happened to that guy, because that story about him stripping the LAPD cop and shooting at his feet and taking his gun and tying him up, just the craziest story, and then having a SWAT team have to take him down. This guy, he sounds like a beast.
Sounds like Jolly Westcott to him. No,
yeah.
Maybe he had a little assistance. Well,
these two guys went all the way back, before there was MK Ultra or anything. They went back to the old mob back east.
Well, is it probably brains and brawn type of thing?
Yeah. No, they were a team. They were a team. Yeah. Because he had that guy, Victor Piera, who was also a bunco marriage swindler who he teamed up with. And they would marry sisters, or they would, get a couple of these widows. And they must have been really good at it, because he did it 12 times from what they know. You know what I mean?
Well, right. I'm guessing, though, if he's a pretty handsome guy and everything else, and they're coming from maybe less handsome people with a big age difference, I don't know, perhaps there's a place for him.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's interesting because Parsons, who's the attorney for Sirhan, is the mob attorney for them. There's one of the connections to the Sirhan case. The attorneys in the case were mafia mob attorneys, oddly enough.
Wow. Well, after we get through the JFK, we will be going on to RFK, obviously.
Right. We'll go back and revisit that. This will never end, folks. We're never getting out of this alive. I'll tell you that right now. I'm stuck doing this the rest of my life. There's just too many characters involved to escape at this time. Jim Braden is one of them. And if we get to James Powell, that'll be an interesting character, the Army intelligence guy. And then I'm sure there's people out in the comment section in the chat who have their own favorites, Eric.
Oh, yeah.
That we're never going to get to. We're not going to get to. What if we made a wheel and we just threw darts at it, and whatever dart we hit is the character we do?
Yeah, I was thinking, what's that show when they're like, come on, Price is Right, where you've got that big ass wheel and you just spin it.
It's got everybody's names on it, and we just spin it around.
Oh my God, that'd be crazy. Well,
any
good
questions
news
out there. Anybody have any questions?
Oh, we got all kinds of chatter. We have super chats coming in right now. Michael,
okay,
thank you for the channel. Happy New Year, and thank you, Michael. We definitely appreciate that.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Thomas Leach is enjoying the show and the content on JFK. Thanks for the work.
Yeah, this is unusual content, folks. I don't think you're going to get this anywhere else.
No. Well, it's coming in timely. I mean, this is the 60th year, so we're leading into it.
I did some numbers last night. We have about 3.5 million views and only 35,000 subscribers, which means that only 1 out of 100 people who watch the show ever even consider subscribing, which is possibly the lowest level of any channel in YouTube history. I'm embarrassed to even know you people. I really am. It makes me sick to my stomach, the people who watch this and don't subscribe. 1 out of 100, Eric. Anybody could do this math at home. I mean, it is really embarrassing to me as an American, and to Hunley as an American, and as a professional YouTuber, which is Hunley. I mean, it's sick. It really makes me sick, especially because it's free. I mean, Jesus, for the love of God, can't you subscribe, you sick bastards? What is so difficult?
We're trying everything. Carrot, stick.
Well, there's nothing that can make them. They don't care. It's got to be some COINTELPRO. It's got to be some COINTELPRO program or some MK Ultra thing that just can't subscribe, no matter what, can't subscribe.
Well, if you're not, hit the like button at least, folks.
The like button they can hit all day. They don't give a shit about that. But they go to subscribe, and there's like an electric shock that goes through their system that stops them from subscribing.
No, Winston, don't subscribe twice unless it's on two different accounts. That's another word for the wise. So if you're subscribed, you're good. Stay there.
Can you believe 99 out of 100 people who just watched this show said, you can't make me subscribe. One person says, all right, I'll do it. What the hell? That was pretty good. Hunley, Grobert. Who knows if they're telling the truth?
Georgina, you've been amazingly generous.
We have our supporters, and she's one of the top supporters. But
for sure,
the subscription thing is just unbelievably insane.
And it really does help. And obviously locals. Tony Neves, yeah, occasionally I do try to get to every super chat, but like as we're winding up, because I'm looking at a different screen, I might miss one when it comes at the last minute. Sorry about that.
Sorry, Tony.
Tony, we've gone around and around about. We don't
Jeff
really
Shepard he was a part of Nixon's defense team.
That might be something I can do on one of my channels, but we don't really, do interviews here for the most part. When we went to Dallas, we talked to people in person. One of those may be coming out soon, but in general, we just don't do interviews. We might do a hangout, but we don't do interviews.
Right.
Lady Freddie, super sticker, $4.99. Thank you. Richard Adams. Isn't it sus the PO let him leave the state? Happy New Year.
No, you could leave the state. You can on business. And he was legitimately leaving the state on business.
And with really powerful,
and he had a legitimate meeting with Lamar Hunt. I mean, he was right about that.
Yeah, a big name too. I mean, so it makes sense.
Right. I mean, it resonated with the parole officer, and they put it down in the books. By the way, today's Yiddish word of the day is kvetch, and I've been kvetching about the lack of subscriptions. So I'm going to go with Pasha, one of your favorite words of all time, kvetch. That's Kvetch for those of you writing in Yiddish at home.
All right. And thank you, Pasha. Yeah, it would be nice having a mind map and everything showing all the interconnections. It just takes so long to put that together. We barely can get the show together.
Hey, you guys could do it at home. Make it like your high school project or something. Or
yeah, we'll share it. I promise.
Yeah, well, if you make it, we'll share it. But we don't have time. I barely have time to milk my cow that's in the backyard.
Tosh Plumley, I'm not familiar. But thank you. Nate, long live Jack Ruby. JFK is my father. Great show, guys. Okay, Nate.
Jack Ruby seems to surface everywhere. I mean, even Roger Stone said, that Nixon, when he was watching Ruby kill Oswald, said, "I know that guy. That's Jack Rubenstein."
Which is amazing.
Yeah.
Hold on. Pina shows helicopter tours, which that one I love. That cracks me up.
Oh, Pinochet's helicopter tours? Yeah.
Yeah, except the problem is that people tend to exit before it lands.
Oh.
I don't know if you're familiar with his background.
Covered in your web. Well, we're going to do David Atlee Phillips. I don't know about Fletcher Prouty, but we're definitely going to do, and we've mentioned him before. So Phillips's brother was a Hollywood screenwriter that wrote the movie Thunder Road that starred Robert Mitchum, that also became a song by Bruce Springsteen based on the movie. Little oddball trivia there.
All right. And Peter Cucino.
Boy, this guy, he must be printing money wherever this guy lives. This is great.
We deeply appreciate it. Thank you for continue the press. Thank you. Richard Adams. It'd be rad to see Whitney Webb and Mark share notes. Sure. I mean,
I'd rather work alone, naked in my own urine, work with Hunley.
If he's naked in the urine, he will be working alone. Remember that first part of that message. Texas Carrie, Happy New Year to you as well. Catherine, 999 super sticker. Thank you. Outright mental defective. And it's not even a Rumble person.
Hey, what happened to the Rumble person? What happened to the Rumble person?
I know. I'll go look here in a second.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for the super sticker. Dreadnought Trucking LLC.
Hey, did you ever put that picture up of La Costa I gave you? There's like a hotel, like a pool picture of La Costa?
No.
Okay, well, thanks for stopping by. Thank you.
Okay.
Tell them what he's won, Bob. You win a trip to La Costa.
Yeah.
There was a good color photo of the pool that I liked.
Okay. Missed that one. I can probably find it if I dig around. But got the Dreadnought. Okay, sorry. This is for the book fund, and you can only subscribe once. Yes. That's why I said don't.
Yeah. But you could come up with pseudonyms.
And other accounts.
Like James Bradley, Hale Braden.
There we go. We could up our subscribers just by having him and his identities.
All right. Let me just read some of his names, it was Eugene Hale Braden, Jim Braden, Harry Eugene Bradley, James Bradley Lee, Gene Brady, James Lee Cole, and about 20 others.
Wow. insane. Let's see. Hold on. This is huge, dude.
What?
Little Rock throwing a mic down.
Little Rock. Okay, way to go. Way to top it off.
Yeah, thank you very much. A lot of people are conspiracy nuts about subscribing to a YouTube channel. A bulk of your watchers are those types of people, which I catch a lot. Okay.
Maybe there might be something to that. Or maybe shadow banning, Hunley?
Anything's
How about
possible.
some suppression, huh? Who's the Elon Musk of YouTube? Where's that guy coming from?
I don't know.
Is there a guy out there who's going to buy YouTube and straighten this out?
Well, it's probably not Elon. They've already been asking.
Well, I mean, I guess the Rumble guy who bought Rumble, I guess that's the answer to that, right?
Yeah, well, they're going to have to build a competitor. I mean, YouTube is part of Alphabet, aka Google, which is far bigger. You know, I mean, he could buy Twitter because Twitter was weak and having problems.
Right.
You can't be doing that with YouTube. YouTube's far.
We'll see how the court cases turn out with the attorney generals of the United States going after them.
Well, sure, but then that would mean they were devalued and the price would be down. But he can't do anything about that.
If they lose those, those suits. Oh, here it is. I'm sorry. I just wanted to give the audience at home a look at La Costa, which has a golf course and a lot of other stuff. It's one of the top country clubs in California, Southern California.
All right, let me see. Dave wants to know, is that a suede jacket?
Yeah, it is.
All right. And Trenton Paul, $10. Thank you. Hot Pocket with $10. Is the name Morgan Holbert Brown? I think.
Yes.
Okay. I'll have to look that one up. Died in 82.
Okay. Makes sense. Yeah, that's who it is.
Chris Jensen, 99 cents. Thank you. Bill Kinsella, 1999. Thank you very, very much. And let me see. A couple super chats came. One came in. Blatant localism. Keep it up, guys. The most interesting show on YouTube.
Well, it's definitely interesting. I don't know if we get subscribers, but people find it interesting.
All right, and Braxel gave us a Rumble rant of $10. Happy New Year. Great episode. Had not heard of Morgan H. Brown or the location of the hotel. Were there other potential shooting locations along the Stemmons? And he subscribed.
Well, I don't know, but I know of this one because there was information about him checking in and out with a rifle bag. And that spot, if you put the rifle through one of those lattice holes, is an unbelievable sniper spot. If you have the ability to pick off a car moving laterally at 40 or 35 or 45 miles per hour. Keep in mind when he was shot, the car was doing 70. So that because they were going to the hospital.
Yeah. Well, I mean that was. I mean, obviously they wouldn't have made that shot, but yeah, if he was still just going along,
right? You could track it. Right.
But you're right though, because if he was shot at, period, they would have been hauling ass out of there. That would have been a miracle freaking shot out of there. He would have to be just gunning, doing everything to try to take out the car.
Right. But interesting that they had the presence of mind to put someone on the Stemmons Freeway like that.
Well, I mean, they had them all over the place. So
yeah.
And then we have talked about military.
Right.
And that's a military, and you're going to have, let me see, YouTube operates as loss, always has, always will. The amount of servers to make it. Yeah, it's pretty unlikely. I don't know if it's at a loss now, though. I mean, they do pull in a lot of the ad dollars.
Well, Netflix operated at a loss in the beginning, too, because they didn't have the bandwidth in foreign countries. A lot of countries wouldn't give up their bandwidth just for Netflix, especially in South America.
Yeah. Well, and there's always a dispute of, hey, you're just going to suck up all the internet. We keep this in mind. This is the problem that Netflix had. Who provides the internet access for the majority of people in the country?
Government?
Cable companies.
Oh, cable company. Right.
So Netflix is literally their competitor. And you had people saying, well, screw it. I have Netflix. I'll cancel my cable. And they would just go for the cable internet. So it did not benefit them in any way to say, yeah, we'll give Netflix all the bandwidth in the world. They're like, oh, hell no. Suppress it, stop it, everything. Because, I mean,
I think in the socialist countries, it was the government that they had to bribe or cajole or buy bandwidth from, in South America, at least, or in Eastern Europe, probably for that matter. I don't know.
Could be, but let me see. Okay, that covers all of the super chats, which we deeply, deeply appreciate. We also have merch below with the illustrious Oswald.
Oswald, the sniper dog.
He's a patsy.
Patsy dog sniper.
And Mark will eventually pick up another one of his grow bears. All the ladies keep stealing them from him.
Yeah, these chicks keep taking my bears. Chicks stole my bears. That's in my new book.
As usual, our locals has been growing really nicely lately. It's great seeing everybody. Please consider going there. Again, you can follow for free on structure.locals.com. No cost to follow. And if you want to continue to support, that we have some things beyond the paywall, but there's a ton of stuff there that is.
Yeah, we're going to put up these top secret memorandums in a couple of minutes on the locals website there. So keep your eyes open for that. And some other rare documents that I've stumbled onto. Yeah, there's some fun stuff up there.
Right now, Chuck, the HL Hunley was actually a submarine. It's a Confederate submarine, and it was the first submarine used in a battle to bring down another ship. Sad case about the Hunley, though. The Hunley himself, Horace Hunley, who created it, died in it.
Yeah,
in a lake. They pulled it out of the lake, pulled the corpses back out, found other people to put in it, destroyed a vessel, I believe, outside of South Carolina, and also sank there. And they were pulled out a few years ago and confirmed that it was there. So everybody died in that freaking vessel.
Yeah, that was a mess.
Yeah, it wasn't the best thing in the world.
Right.
Thank you very much, Bobby. Stumbled on your show 4 days ago and watched 14 shows since. Great.
What's the record? How many shows can you watch in 4 days?
I don't know.
A lot of them are like 2 hours. Some of them an hour and a half.
Especially, we got like a 2.5
Maybe if you watch it at a faster speed or something.
Maybe. Or just, I think listen in the background.
We have Barnes on Friday, I think, for Freeform Freakin' Friday with Barnes. I have a bunch of questions for Barnes. Remind me to ask him. I wanted to know why Trump legally can't tweet on Twitter after he does Truth Social. Remind me to ask him that.
Yeah, I'm sure some contract, but it's nuts.
Right.
Well, then again, now Elon has kind of precluded that because he's floating the policies. And I don't know what was going on there, but remember for like a part of a day, because he does stuff and then he changes his mind. There's a little bit of that. He was like, okay, I'm going to lock up any account that's using Twitter as nothing more than an advertising.
Oh, weird.
A lot of people suggested that Trump could always just go on and do a partial post on Twitter with a link to Truth Social to drive traffic over there.
A whole mess of ways to skin this cat, but he's got 85 million followers who are just sitting there.
Yeah.
I don't get it. Maybe Robert has an answer that's a little bit more in depth than a legal thing.
Okay, they're claiming it was in his contract that he would not use other social media.
Ever?
I don't know.
I mean, I'm curious to see that contract then. I mean, also, will Trump become the Speaker of the House tonight as we go into the fourth round of voting?
That would be weird.
The third round of voting is happening right now, where McCarthy must be feeling pretty low, that they keep having. I mean, how many rounds do you go? Is this like a Chicago convention or something where you just keep getting into the 18th round?
Well, they cut off to the top 3. And then I don't know what's going to happen because it's like when they do the cutoff, can somebody slide in? How does that work?
I don't know.
I have no clue.
I mean, these people are not buckling despite all the plums that he supposedly has offered them to change their vote. This is great. I assume they'll buckle at some point, but still, I mean, they've embarrassed McCarthy immensely.
Oh, yeah. Well, he's going to the weakest tenure imaginable. So, but you know what? On that note, we'll be catching up with this on Friday. I hope to see you in locals.
Okay.
But between now and then, see everybody Friday. Right?
Oh, okay. I'll be there. Was that it?